Hello, everybody.
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing well. Greetings from Berkeley, California. Where are you at?
I am in Syracuse, New York.
All right.
Yeah.
East Coast time. It must be
Huh?
dark by now.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been a really nice day though here. Spring is finally starting to come around, so I'm actually taking this meeting from outside.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Where are the rest of you guys joining us from?
I'm in Ithaca, so I'm real close to Syracuse.
Okay, a couple East Coasters. Very cool.
I'm in Sebastopol, just north of you.
Oh yeah, I love Sebastopol. Very nice.
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Portland. All right, West Coast versus East Coast going on here. Who else do we have here? Anybody not in the United States joining us? Okay. So yeah, one of the things that DISC is kind of known for is the fact that the students are coming from really all across the country and all around the world. So I'll show you some kind of facts about kind of DISC that I found pretty interesting when we started compiling them, how many countries that students have come from and different states over the years. Yeah. So what do you think? Should we get started, Chrissie?
Yeah, Berkeley does a weird thing where they make you log into your Zoom account first before you can get into a meeting. Sometimes it takes people a little bit to get in, but I think we can. Yeah. I think we can get going. People will be trickling in.
Okay. Well, I'll just introduce myself first. My name is Gabriel Kaprielian. I'm the program director. I have been a part of DISC since the very beginning. I started it with Guigo Di Tommaso, who you will all meet if you join the program. And we actually started it with a number of people from what was originally called Rebar. It was a landscape architecture and kind of like art practice. It was looking at kind of social engagement through the built environment. And they've actually been incorporated by Gelt Architects. I think anybody who's interested in the built environment, you'll probably come across Gelt Architects at some point because they are really the one of the best firms in the world focusing on creating cities for people. So yeah, so Gabriel, we've also got Devi here, who was with us last year as one of the instructors. He's going to be joining us again.
Hi guys.
You want to tell them a little bit about yourself, where you're working, what you did?
Hi guys, I'm Devi. I graduated actually last year from the Masters of Urban Design in Berkeley. So I'm an architect and an urban designer, currently working in Napa on a construction build firm. And I'll be supporting Gabriel again this year as a digital instructor and also helping you guys in the process of your project.
Thanks, Devi. I think you guys all have at least had some correspondence with Chrissie Bradley, who is the program administrator for all the summer programs.
Yes, also known as DISC staff at Summer Discovery at berkeley.edu. Hi, everybody. I am the program director for CED's 3 summer programs, but DISC is my favorite, really, secretly. So you might not know it, but yes, you'll probably interact with me either through the slideroom.com application system, or if you interact with the website or email the DISC account. I'm the one behind those. So I can put my contact info in the chat, but anything that doesn't get covered during this info session, you can always follow up with me on, and I can give some more technical info about the scholarship application process and the admissions process. But Gabe and Debbie are here to talk about the fun stuff, the content and the format of the course.
If they have any questions about applications, things of that nature, credit, they can just send you an email. Do you want to type your email into the chat? Just
yeah,
everybody's got it there. And also, if you guys have any questions that just pop up into your head, comments, feel free to just throw them into the chat. All right, cool. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about DISC. I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so this is from our blog last year. Every year we have a blog and a publication of the work. So you guys can just go on here and type disc2020.weebly.com. And this will pop up. You can see it's it's got our blog and all of the work that was done. It's has the faculty. That's me. That's Gigo. Reagan, who's going to be joining us again. Lindsay and Devi, who you just met. And you can also see the guest speakers. So every year we have a really incredible group of guest speakers. One of the great things about doing it online is that we've been able to get guest speakers that we haven't been able to get in the past, because we can get people from all across the country and around the world. So we had actually a number of people joining us from different parts of the US and internationally. So Renata joined us from the UK, Lucia joined us from Peru. So yeah, it was really a great lineup last year. We had more guest speakers than previous years. And then you can also check and look at kind of description of the seminars that both Gigo and myself teach, digital workshops, which Devi is the master of and put together a bunch of really incredible tutorials, but she does so much more than that. She's also one of the studio instructors, so it really helps out with that part as well. And then you can kind of check out and see what our syllabus was. And this year we're going to do something pretty similar. And it was an interesting transition going from in-person to online. And at first I had some reservations whether or not it was going to be possible, because the program has in the past been so focused on teamwork and insight, like visits and actually going together to sites, that I was wondering, how can we do this online? But I would say it ended up being one of the best programs that we've ever done. And part of it was that we kind of switched around the focus of a particular site here in the Bay Area and made the project about each of your hometowns. And so or wherever you want to consider your hometown. So really the focus was this idea of thinking about what your home city could be in the year 2100. And thinking about framing this within the challenges of urban health, social equity, and climate change. And then it became kind of an urban design, landscape architecture proposition that you created, first by starting out with exercises like creating postcards from the future, where you create these visualizations and you write back about what it's like in the future. And then really kind of diving into each of these challenges to think about how to design for the city of the future. So this was kind of like the workflow. We did psychogeographic mapping, a SWOT analysis, which is looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in the city, the postcards, and then creating an urban design that had both the site analysis and stakeholder character studies, and then resilience strategies, these chance event cards, so thinking about multiple scenarios, and then creating these speculative future proposals. So I'll show you some of that work, and yeah, it's pretty fun. So this is where the students came from last year, but over the years we've had students come from 26 different countries, and I'll show you that as well. This is the calendar. It is a pretty full 5-month program. So, just be sure to save enough time. If you guys are up for the challenge, I think you'll get a lot out of it, but it's definitely not something to just kind of do on the side, right? And you want to get your money's worth anyways. And then let's see, I think we can also, if we do the weekly overview, you can go through here and kind of see what each of the weeks looks like. So that's kind of like a general overview. So you might have a question, how do we teach online? How do you teach design online? Well, one of the ways we did it is that we incorporated some of these new digital tools like Miro. And you could see here, it's a space where you can post your work and it's interactive. And so you are in real time posting work, having conversations with the studio instructor. And maybe Devi, you can actually talk a little bit about what it was like teaching the studio this last summer and how you use these platforms.
Yeah, sure. So what we basically did in the last summer, we had kind of assignments every week and gave it to you. And we had part of the assignment was kind of like co-guided with me and the studio instructor, where I basically gave you an introduction to a program like Photoshop. We start really slow with Photoshop and we're gonna go into 3D over the weeks. So you're gonna be surprised what you actually are able to do after 5 weeks. And it was partly that way, and the other way was giving you all kinds of information, like a digital workshop where I was kind of recording how the assignment was worked on, so you could do it outside of the classroom, outside of the studio room. And then the third part was partly one-on-one meetings with me or the studio instructor, where we would basically scribble over your uploaded things in Miro. So you could upload a picture on Miro, and we can scribble over it. We can interactively talk with you about how you could change your project, what you can improve, what is already great, but also what I thought was really incredible, your classmates could interactively comment on your project too, which was kind of much more collaborative sometimes than in actually one-on-one studios, where you sometimes even don't really interact with other teammates just because you were so busy trying to get the attention of your studio, your head of studio, or your instructors. So that's kind of the advantage of it. Also, what was really helpful is if we have usually we have a lot of international students, so there's a lot of different time zones. And it was really helpful for us too, that if you upload something in the middle of the night in Singapore, for example, it was for me in the morning, I could quickly react to it and quickly give you some notes so you can work on it the next morning. So it was much less time restrictive than it would usually be with like coming into the studio from 1 to 5 and then leaving and not being able to really work on something until you get the feedback. So it's really fast responding. Is there anything else to add?
I think that's great. And yeah, I think maybe I could just go to talk a little bit about kind of the structure of the program. And one of the changes that we did was we actually broke, as Devi was saying, broke the studio into 2 different sections. So one was like East Coast time and Europe, and the other was West Coast time and Asia. And we did it every other day, which really, I think helped out the workflow. Also gave you guys a little bit more time to work in between getting feedback. So generally the program is broken up into 4 components. So we've got the 2 seminars, the one that I teach, and then that's really connected to studio. Another one that is the one that Gigo teaches, which is the Global Cities, Global Challenges. Has a little bit more of an international focus, which is really in his expertise. We have the lecture series with the guest speakers. And then we have the digital workshops, which Debbie is, leads and integrates into the studio. And then ultimately, all of this goes into your work in the studio sessions. So those are really kind of the 4 components. And so if you guys join me here on the blog, I'm going to just type this into the chat just in case that might make it a little bit easier.
It's in there.
Oh, great. Okay. So if you go to the top right here and click on this virtual gallery, this is another one of the fun things that we created this last year for the first time, which was virtual reality spaces that we did pinups inside of. So if you go in here, you can join the room and we can all kind of walk around in it. So one of the things I'm going to show you guys here. So what you want to do, actually, if I go back here, if you look down when you enter, you can see how you move around in the space. So it's W to go forward, A and D side to side, and S to go backwards. And so if I just press W and I walk in through here, you can see, kind of all of the stuff that was on the blog, but also we made this really cool map that I think Dewi put together actually. And it shows all the alumni from the last 7 years. So 231 alumni, 28 countries. And one of the things I was just checking out before this meeting was to see all of the DISC students who I wrote letters of recommendation for this last year. So one of the things you guys are probably thinking about is, why do DISC? And I think there's many different reasons you might have for that. You might be in a non-design major where you want to incorporate design into issues of sustainability. You might be in a design major where you really want to think about different scales and interdisciplinary work and sustainability. And a lot of you are thinking about grad school. So, I was just looking through the students I wrote recommendations for this last year. Over 3 of them were from this last year in 2021. 2 students had no design background before they started DISC and actually changed their major. So Meg, she was a cognitive science and psychology, and she decided to go into architecture. So she got into a number of schools. I believe she chose University of Oregon for its focus on sustainability. Xing Wen was one of the students who was in architecture, and he was actually from Wuhan, China. So that was really interesting to talk to him about his experience with coronavirus and all the craziness that's come out. He got into MLA programs at UC Berkeley and UPenn. Nathan, who also had no design background, he was in finance. Architecture and then to Michigan. And then we had students from 2020 who contacted me a year later. Manaka is going to Harvard's GSD in landscape architecture. Elena is gonna, I think she got into UCLA, USC, Columbia for city planning. Candace also got into Columbia and Michigan for planning. And then one of the students from 2016, one of the first years, Spencer contacted me to write letters of recommendation. And he decided to get into furniture design, and he got into all of his programs: RISD, SAIC, Cranbrook, MICA. So it's really great to kind of keep in touch with everybody over the years. And I know Chrissie actually probably keeps in touch with people more than anybody with the Facebook and other kind of avenues. So the community continues to grow, and I think that's one of the great things about it. And it looks like a number of you guys are in here already. So one of the things you can do is you walk through here is you can right click on the poster and actually just like zoom in if you've got a mouse, and you can see some of the work here a little bit more up close. You can also go over to any of these projects, and with the QR code, you can just hold up your phone. If you've got an iPhone, you can just go into photos and then just like hold it over the QR code, and you should see the 3D model should pop up. So you can see kind of the digital model that they created, which Dewi helped them kind of figure out how to do by tutorials in both Rhino, and then what we used here is this app called Sketchfab, which is just online free software. And you can actually go down to download model. Some of them are a little tricky because they became really big files, but we started using augmented reality as well, where you can actually visualize this model like on the table through your phone or device. So that was a way that we kind of transitioned from what we used to do in past years in person, which was using digital fabrication, and instead now we're using virtual and augmented reality. So anyways, this is just some of the fun stuff that we're doing. But I'm going to stop sharing, and maybe I just kind of hear from you guys and any questions you guys might have. I can also post questions too. Yeah, Amit, you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Great.
So I'm going to be completely honest with you. I study policy studies and sustainability here at Syracuse, and I saw an ad for DISC pop up on my Facebook. And it looked kind of interesting, and I was like, hey, it's just an info session, let me sign up. And now sitting here for the last like 20 minutes, a lot of the stuff that you've talked about has ignited a different sort of curiosity in me, and I see more potential there to add to what will make me employable when I actually graduate from this place. So coming from the viewpoint of someone who is like a non-architecture, non-design major, will this program be a step in a direction where I would need to put a ton of time and effort? Or is this something that will be manageable, say like with a summer internship? And I just want to hear more about the program.
That's a great question. So that's one of the reasons why in the past we did team-based work, because I was worried about, we usually had a mixture of non-design and design students together. But so this summer, everybody did their own project. And we had still, I would say at least half, if not more of the students had no design background. So if you walk around, look at the work, you can judge for yourself. So I think a lot of it, I would say, is we found like kind of ways to create templates and other things that allow non-designers to learn very quickly. I would say a lot of it, the credit goes to Dewi and being an incredible instructor for different digital software. So we're not teaching you like how to do every different thing in each of these software. We're kind of giving you a starter, and then it's basically what you need to know to accomplish kind of the different exercises. But I think there was 2 students who had no design background who completely switched their career trajectory after the program and went into architecture and got into Master of Architecture schools. So, I think you can do it.
Gabe, could you talk a little more about how hard the difficulties of balancing enrollment in the program with a part-time job or with internships? Have students
Yeah,
possible?
I mean, you mean like if somebody's got an internship this summer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be challenging. I would say it's more doable that it's online. In the years past, I would say don't do that because when we're in person, there was just a lot of things that we did, like, full day field trips. The studio was every single day in the afternoon. I think you can probably manage your time a little bit better with the program as it is, but it's still a lot of work. So I would just say it's whatever you want to get out of it. So, we're not going to say you have to be working 40 hours a week on this, right? But I would say, just within the time, so studio is going to be 2 days a week. I believe it's 4 hours each session. So that's 8 hours. Then Fridays, there's the reviews every week. You only have to be there for your review, really, but we really like that everybody is there for everybody else's review. The studio is synchronous, yeah. So it's 2 days a week, and it's either in the morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. And then there's the morning thing. So there's the seminar and the lectures. You don't have to go to those, but I think it's a big part of the program. So it's really up to you what you want to get out of it. I think all of it is very, very useful. And I do think you can have an internship or a job, but you certainly, if you're working full time on an internship and doing this program, I think that's gonna be real tough.
To add, Gabe,
you have a part-time one, maybe.
Yeah, Gabriel, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, just to add, we had actually students last year that worked part-time. I don't know of anyone that worked full-time, but we had part-time students, and I think they sometimes, or like what they did was, instead of going into the studio that fitted their time zone, I think one was in the other time zone, so she could go to work but also study with us. That was one solution. If you're up with it, it's a lot of work to balance both, but if you're motivated, it was possible.
Let's see. So I got another question here from Samridi. Is that correct? So the question is, could you please go over the timeline of the program? So yeah, if you look at the calendar, you can get a better idea of the program, but let me just share my screen again. All right, so if you go onto the website, the blog, and you go to studio, actually, let's just go to the calendar. So the calendar really kind of shows each day, kind of each week and each day what's going on. So you can see we've got Studio A that meets Monday and Wednesday. Do you remember what times the studios met at, Debbie?
That's a good question. Because there were two studios and they were like, I was in both studios, so I was busy all day, but I don't remember. I think usually like we did one studio California time 8 to noon, and the other one was, I think, from 1 to 5 California time, but I'm not.
It was 10 to 2 because it was after
10 to 2.
Unless it was a Studio B. Well, anyways, we'll check on the exact time. It's been a while, but really what we have is we have a morning studio and an evening studio. So those are every other day. So typically you'll see there's say Monday, you have the urban seminar. So that's at 8 a.m. Pacific time to 10 a.m., which is later for East Coast and Europe. And, so it's a different time for everybody, but it seemed to be a time that worked for all different time zones. The guest lectures are also at 8 a.m. Pacific time, and that's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so is Gigo's seminar. So that's like the 8 a.m. morning time. And then the studios basically are at either the morning or afternoon time. So there's something every day, but it's typically only like a 1 to 2 hour time slot, with the exception of the studio. But then I think that also goes to how much are you engaging with the instructor during that time. And typically it's only a fraction of the studios the time you're actually doing one-on-one, but there's also stuff that you do as an entire studio. So checking in with each other. Hopefully that answers your question. We have another question. Do we know who will give the guest lectures? Not yet. Every year I bring in different people, but you can actually look at all the different years past. So if you actually type in disc2020.weebly.com, you can see all the guest lectures that year. If you just change 2020 to 2019, 2018, 2017, you can actually see the guest lectures from that. And I think it's also on the UC Berkeley website. But we've had really incredible guest lectures in the past. And I think the previous year, has anybody listened to 99% Invisible? So we had Roman Mars, one of my heroes. I love that show. He came over from beautiful downtown Oakland, California, and joined us. And we also had Peter Calthorpe that year, who's kind of like the godfather of transit-oriented development, new urbanism. So every year there's really kind of I think a great group of people. Robert Ogilvie, who's like the director of SPUR, which is like the preeminent urban planning research organization in the Bay Area, and he's based in the Oakland area. Each year, kind of based on the different topics that we look at, kind of bringing different people who have expertise in that. Is there any chance Jan Gell will give a lecture? Well, I don't know. Jan Gell, he might be he might be hard to pin down. But we basically have the next best thing, which is Gigo. Because
I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah, Debbie, you've seen Young Gal speak, right?
Yeah, I've seen him speak, but honestly, Gigo is the better speaker of both of them. No, like he's the next closest thing I think you can get from Gal.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Speaking about the past years and how you all did field trips, will there be any sort of activities that'll be similar or kind of like go in the space of that?
Yeah, we do have something that's actually pretty similar, but it's more self-directed. So that is where you basically do the site analysis for your city. And it's interesting because there's really two different ways that we look at the site analysis. One is creating kind of this psychogeography and this mapping of the place. And so it's basically kind of, you start with a map, you walk through it, you take photos, sketches, and you create this psychogeographic collage. The other is doing a little bit more in-depth research on a particular neighborhood that you're going to focus your work on. And then you start doing a SWOT analysis. So we kind of walk you through different ways to focus in on looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's really what you then use to build your design project. So that's exactly what we would do if we did it in person. It's just you would actually be walking around with everybody. So yeah, but very similar exercise. Thank you, Alessandra, for your question. Anybody else?
Can you talk a little more about the seminars?
Yeah, definitely. So, so I teach one seminar, which is the Urban Innovation Seminar. That is really connected with the studio. So it's basically developing kind of a theoretical framework and how to apply that to thinking about your studio. So it combines a little bit of kind of history and kind of contemporary practice, and then poses questions through kind of a mixture of lecture and discussion. So I will give you guys readings, podcasts, other things to kind of like look at, and then we talk about it. Gigo, he does the one called Global Cities, Global Challenges, and that one is he teaches kind of a similar seminar, I think, at UC Berkeley, and so he kind of distills it into two or three lectures. I think last year he did 3 lectures, and each one kind of was focusing on kind of a different topic of basically like global cities, global challenges, right? So what are the things that we're facing in cities in the US and also around the world, and how do we tackle those? So these are also like tools to then frame your work as well. Yeah, each of those is 2 hours. So each of us does it, I think, almost every week. And then it'll be for 2 hours.
Great, thanks.
Yep. Other questions? I'm curious, why are you guys interested in the program? Anybody? Why'd you show up here today?
I'm curious just to learn the design process for urban planning and that sort of thing.
Okay, what's your major now, Hugo?
I'm studying architecture at College of Marin.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're interested in kind of like a larger perspective of design in the built environment.
Yeah. Yes,
Nice.
and I really like that approach, the psychogeographic thing, and I'm glad you went into detail on that. I think that's really interesting. And it's actually, because I'm trying to do the same thing for my geography final. It's like very similar.
Are you taking a GIS class or something? That looks like an ArcGIS map behind you.
Right, no, but it's for my geography class, but this is, it's the hydrology of Southern California.
That's pretty cool. I've seen that map up close. It's awesome.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah. Actually, I think one of my family friends made a t-shirt of the one up in Humboldt County where I grew up.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Maybe I should print this out, do some sure.
Yeah. Yeah, water is definitely one of the big things we look at because I mean, places like California, mean, water is going to be so vital to, sustainability. It has a lot to do with why we have such bad wildfires. There's a lot of things, not just the water, like how it's coming in from the mountains and climate change, but also how we could potentially reuse water. Like if we have green grass everywhere and these lawns that are getting water all the time, is that sustainable? Is the agriculture sustainable? And can we reuse, the water within municipalities? Because right now it just goes straight into our tap, we use it, and then it goes out the drain and doesn't get recycled. So there's a lot more we can do there. So one of the ways I was looking at that, I worked for Sherwood Design Engineers about a year ago, and I was doing a lot of big scale projects that really focusing on water and creating net positive water. A lot of the projects were actually big tech campuses, so Google and Microsoft, and they're doing some of the most building in the Bay Area currently, and they're really interested in sustainability, but they have no idea how to do it at that scale. So it was really interesting to kind of work with them in these massive interdisciplinary teams, really thinking about deep sustainability, not just solar panels on the roof, green roofs, but like how do you actually have closed loop wastewater energy systems at scale? So pretty fun.
Interesting. I just got out of this lecture on beavers at Sonoma State. It's going on till 6. It's a pretty long seminar, but they're talking about how beavers do a really good job of lifting the water table, and kind of trophically that cascades to like really help a lot of things. They're talking about, we know a lot about drainage. Beavers don't know how to do drainage, but they've been making dams and canals for like 5 million years. So
yeah. I've actually heard some people like architect or more like landscape architects, engineers also talk about beavers, and it's just this idea that the fact that they've been almost wiped out has drastically changed the way ecosystems work. So pretty interesting as well. Well, anybody else? Why did you join today?
I can go ahead. So I major in both geography and environmental studies and minor in human-centered design. So this is really at the intersection of all the things I'm interested in. And I also just think it's very important to look at the future of our cities, because I am definitely a person who is drawn towards urban centers. And yeah, and also I was wondering, I guess I can ask this question if after anyone else, or have it answered after anyone else who wants to talk about why they're interested. But I just wanted to know if there will be any sort of analysis based on lack of access due to things like redlining or racism, classism, et cetera, throughout the program.
Great question. Let me just share with you a really cool resource that I think I actually introduced this last year. This is this incredible website that was created called Mapping Inequality. And you can look at kind of like all of these cities across the United States, and they have geo-referenced redlining maps and detailed descriptions of really the racist practices that were that created segregation in cities across the US. So yeah, that's a huge problem in cities. And I think certainly something, it'll be a little bit different for each of you in the cities that you are working with, because what's happening in Oakland, California is very different than what's happening in Portland, Oregon, which is very different than what's happening in Shanghai or London. But there's certainly similar issues of access and equity that I would say really is coupled with sustainability. And so they're very much interconnected. But yeah, if we think about climate change, for instance, the people who are most susceptible to impacts of climate change are usually people disproportionately affected who are underserved populations. So there's a long history to kind of pull out from that. So I think that's a good way to talk about it. Thanks for joining us, Mia. hope to see you again. Anybody else?
I study civil engineering, but I'm interested in like sort of moving into design, at least gaining exposure to it. But I was wondering if you have a lot of people that come from engineering backgrounds that get involved in this program.
Yeah, we've definitely had some engineers over the years, and actually a lot of geographers as well, which is it's cool that there's, some interest in geography. So yeah, engineering for sure. Are you familiar, sure, with design engineers, by the way?
Heard of it, yeah.
You should check them out. They're probably one of the best really design-focused engineering firms that is tackling issues of sustainability. And they work with all the coolest architecture firms because they actually do stuff outside of the box. Where like a lot of civil engineering firms, they're like, I don't know, that sounds complicated. You know, like
Yeah.
Sherwood is like, yeah, we can figure that out. Yeah, and that's, Josiah Kane's one of the people I brought in to speak actually a couple times now. He's one of the principals and partners at Sherwood Design Engineers, who is really about like deep sustainability. He's actually not an engineer though. He has a landscape architecture background and he's more in comes from ecology, but works with civil engineers. So yeah, I think that sometimes engineering though, you have to design, you have to kind of think a little bit differently, but I think like if you can kind of balance that design thinking and engineering thinking, you can really create some pretty amazing changes in the built environment. So that's the type of interdisciplinary thinking that we're hoping to create.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Thanks. Thanks everybody for joining. You guys have Chrissie's email. You can also reach me here. Let me type my email in for those of you who are still here. So feel free to drop myself a email if you have any questions about kind of the program content. If you have any questions about applying to the program, credits, costs, like all those kind of things, Chrissie's the go-to person. Yeah, any kind of final comments, Chrissie?
Yeah, sorry. If
No,
you haven't
go ahead.
already, go to slideroom.com. We try to make the application process as straightforward and non-intimidating as possible. We don't require a portfolio or anything. It's hopefully information and documents that you already have on hand or are readily accessible. But yeah, we really do strive to accept every eligible student. So yeah, we are wrapping up the application process. I think May 15th is the deadline, but we do admissions on a rolling basis. So it's a good idea to get your materials in sooner than later. And if there are any barriers that are preventing you from submitting an application, any situation you want to talk about, just reach out and contact me and we can work it out.
Thank you everybody for joining. Thanks Devi, Chrissie, and hope to see you guys this summer.